Africa is the youngest and then the fast growing continent just across all the globe. Africa is the only place that is still underdeveloped. And so if you are an entrepreneur and then you believe in your vision, you believe in what you want to achieve, I think you can maximize your returns in Africa much more than investing here in the Western world.
Hey guys, welcome back to Africa Capital Connect. Today I'm sitting with my good friend Dr. Kwame Adu-Gyamfi, who holds a doctorate in finance from the Rutgers University Business School and a graduate degree in business management and operations from Johnson Graduate School of Management at Cornell University. Kwame and I worked at KPMG for a few years during the beginning of our career and have been friends since. Kwame, thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Take me back to the beginning. Where did you grow up and when did you decide that you wanted to do something with Africa or do something in Africa?
No, thank you so very much, Kwame. And let me take this opportunity to say big thank you to you and to wish Motherland Ghana a happy anniversary on our Independence Day. Today, we celebrate our 69th anniversary or our independence from the British. Answering your question, I was born in Ghana. I was born in the Western region, Takoradi to be precise. And again, I would say thank you to your audience in tuning in. Takoradi, the best comes from the West, right? So I grew up in the Western region. So I joke around by telling folks that I was born a Fanti. To an Ashanti parent, but an American by naturalization. So
Nice.
I speak fluently Fanti. So we moved to Accra when I turned 5. And I lived all of my life in Accra until I went through the secondary school education. I did college in Ghana before migrating. I did finish college at age 20. And I did teach just about 2 years in Ghana. And I pride myself to have had my students that I did teach in Ghana. Now, some of them medical doctors, professors, accountants like Kwame, you and I, we spent our career, in which we'll be talking about our career in KPMG. So some of my former students working full time in the Ghanaian markets or have also migrated from Ghana to Europe, America, and other places. So yes, I was born in Ghana, spent my youthful days there before migrating to America, where I've spent almost about 30 years of my life. But someone might say, look, you don't look like you've aged, but yes, I turned 50 just last year, which, of course, Kwame, you were there. And I'll
Absolutely.
pause.
Congratulations and happy birthday again. So, bro, quick question for you, right? Is there a difference if you grew up in Ghana versus growing up in the States? Because I came here when I was about 10, 11 years old. Is there a different mindset when you go to university in Ghana or in Africa versus, or at least from your opinion, versus just not having that experience at all? Because I'm always curious as far as, the difference in those that actually went to university in Africa versus those that actually came to the States and went to the university or high school, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think there is some differences. From my perspective, having that Ghanaian upbringing, it keeps you very grounded and it also makes you very focused on what you do. But then it also boils down to the individual, right? You may have grown up in Ghana, but then when you move outside Ghana, there are other foreign influences that may retrogress, the upbringing that you had, or that foreign influence can also spark you to achieve greater heights that you aspire. So yes, I think there are differences between kids that were born, were raised to some years in Ghana before moving out from Ghana to come to the diaspora. I think that experience you cannot underestimate the importance of having the Ghanaian roots inbuilt in you.
Right. So going back to what you were saying, you came here in your 20s, basically.
Correct.
And was your mind thinking at all doing something in Africa, or you just, all right, it's time to get a job? Mom and dad, African parents, how it goes, study, 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 go get a college education, get a college degree, and go find a job, right? That was your whole mindset, or did you always have like, I want to do something in Africa, I want to do a business, I want to start, be an entrepreneur? Were you ever thinking that way?
Absolutely. So my mind has always been Africa. I was born and raised in Ghana, and Ghana, you cannot take Ghana out of me. I came here when I was 22, right? And so, and then that's what I'm saying, close to 30 years, still grinding here in America. Each and every morning, I tune into the Ghanaian news, business, and then the social life that goes on. So, in answering your question, I've always had that mindset and the dream of going back to also play a role in developing our nation, Ghana, especially today being our Independence Day. You and our namesake, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, he laid the foundation for us all, and so we all. It's our duty to also pay back or pay forward to the nation Ghana. So it's without a question that I've always had the desire to, translate what I've gained globally, especially in America, and with all the experience that I've had across the globe, taking it back home to Ghana. My specialty, to what you said, after having my doctorate in finance, has always been in the banking space. I want to make sure that I can move back, establish my own banking business. Besides that, also get into the mortgage and then real estate business. It's something that we need to also help build our nation to where we want it to become.
Okay. Kwame, take me through the transition, right? Because I feel like we both started as accountants, and then you left,
Yeah.
went and got your doctorate degree, became a professor. So how did you get from that place where, I remember all of us were trying to become, partners at KPMG and make it to the top level. So when did you change your trajectory to say, you know what, it's time to think about something else, right? With still having business in mind, you went to become a professor instead. Why did you not focus on, let's go entrepreneur full time, but instead you're using the professor as a way to go have your path to entrepreneurship eventually, correct? Is that where you're going?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, my mom, of blessed memory, and I don't want to be emotional talking about her. She was a teacher in Ghana, but she had that entrepreneurial spirit in her. She was a teacher, but then she also was, a hairdresser in our homeland Ghana. Besides that, also she used to do bakery. And besides the bakery, she also had her own water business, right?
Mm.
Selling water to customers all across, Accra. So I have that same spirit and imbibed in me. So it wasn't a surprise where my career trajectory has always been. I knew way back that the partnership wasn't for me, and it wasn't something that I wanted to shy about, or feel that kind of pressure in sticking around all the long hours. I mean, it's great for those that stuck around. Even I was having conversation with Bob Garrick as of yesterday.
Mm.
So I'm bringing Bob Garrick to Rutgers campus early next month, and so he's even in awe how my career path had turned out. Yes, it's good, and again, I have nothing against people that won the partnership rank, but I believe in research. I believe in education. It also opens doors for anything and everything that you want to do. Having that mindset that I wanted to be also like what my mom did, an entrepreneurial person, I believe that I can walk and chew gum at the same time. I can be a professor. I can be a visiting professor. I do go to China, Japan, other places to do work, share my research thoughts. But I can also have a business running in Ghana and then still be active in contributing to social development in Ghana. So yes, coming into corporate America, you and I were at KPMG, doing audits or doing financial service across different firms, right? But I still had that mindset that I wanted to up my game beyond the CPA, all that, certification stuff that people are always hung up on getting done. But I always encourage folks that do not have that tunnel vision that you always have to have that CPA to be what you want to be. I don't call myself to be successful. I know I'm still grinding to get to where I want to be, but I do not, want to let one aspect limit what I can do and what I can achieve, and also inspire the next generation to achieve whatever that they want to do. I hope that answered your
No, that's
question.
excellent. That's excellent. So, Kwame, why don't you take us through your entrepreneur process, right? What are you working on? What are you doing? What have you invested in? Are you even invested in Africa right now? I know you got a couple of projects that you're working on. So maybe run us through some of the projects you've done, maybe from the beginning, because we've all sampled with different ideas and different projects we want to do, a different entrepreneurship journey we want to enter into. So maybe take us through some of the journeys of what you've done in Ghana and what kind of businesses and where you are now, right? Versus when you first started.
Sure. You got me smiling because of, I was thinking about the frustrations dealing with the Guinean regulatory environment. But, I have a thick skin. I don't give up easily, right? So, yes, I'm working on different projects in Ghana, in this case, from the real estate perspective. And I'll talk about that real estate. But besides that, also, I'm still pursuing, and I'm not going to give up. I'm still pursuing my dream or desire of having a banking license in translating what the knowledge that we've gained here, I would say the best practices that we have had here, translated back to Ghana to improve and then, of course, increase value. So yes, going on to the real estate space, about 5 different projects that I've run into issues with, the regulatory bodies that license real estate or giving you the license to build in Ghana. I've had that challenge with some of them in 4 different areas. But currently, I have one that, touch wood, it's going very well, which, of course, it's almost done. My wife and I, we were in China. I think I mentioned that to you. We were in China to source materials that we can use to, spruce the house that will make it more habitable. I believe that's going to be my vacation home, or maybe we can even put on the market for rental basis in a Brie on a mountainous side. It's a very gorgeous area, which it's almost about 80% done. The 20% is just making sure that we have electricity, the doors, the windows, and then hopefully we can have a generator or a power plant that can help support the running of the house. So yes, that's what we have currently going. But then the frustrating part is what makes it difficult, challenging. But in spite of all that, I still believe that Ghana is the place to invest and then make money out of that.
Okay, that's awesome. But Kwame, what made you keep going though? Because sometimes I feel like the challenges are a lot, right? Like you'll get to a place where you're trying to get the building license, and you're dealing with people that just are not responsive, or you can't get through to anybody. Like, what keeps you going, and how do you figure out a solution to these problems?
Sure, that's an excellent question. And as I said before, I have a thick skin. I don't easily give up. That's who I am.
Right.
I can be very stubborn, but I think it's a trait that Kwame's we do have. It's a turn off to some folks that why are you stubborn? I'm not stubborn. It's just that I don't give up. Yes, we do have challenges dealing with the Guinean authorities. In some cases, and I know in some instances, there are some funds that goes in there that you cannot even realize that. Having said all that, I still believe that it's doable. There are still golden nuggets in there that you can work with. So the current project manager that we have been working with, I would say almost about 100% of all the funds, the resource that we've pumped into this house in Ebri, it's been going well. I've not had any issues with land title registrations or land guards coming there to tear down the building. Yes, of course, we've pumped in over close to $200,000 into this project, but I feel confident. Now, I'll be going there next week to determine how far we are going with the procurement that's going to be coming in from China. So yes, I think you have to have a thick skin dealing with folks in Ghana. At the same time, being patient to grind it out. It calls for patience. That's what you have to have.
Right. Now, Kwame, can you be specific on the process that the delay or whatever it is you were waiting for the building information from the government. Can you be specific on what that issue you were having was and how did you solve it? Because I feel like a lot of us have the same issue, right? I currently have a land in Ghana that I bought maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I still don't have the documentation on it. And I'm working towards getting that documentation from Lands Commission. You know, that wasn't your issue, right? You'll go with Lands Commission. I'm still trying to get my documents from Land Commissions, and I don't have it. So, what was your specific issue with the government, and how did you solve it, or you just had to wait it out? Is that the process?
I mentioned I have 5 different projects, right? So of
Mm,
the 5, the 4 of which I have at this point in time, I'm waiting it out. I'm still going through that same issue with the Ghana Lands Commission to be able to give me the title. 2 of those 4, what we started working on, they had to tear down the building or the fencing, the wall that we had put up. But the 5th one in a Bree that is ongoing, the reason why it was being able to fast forward, the developer that we've been working with, he has a close connection with the Lands Commission. Touch wood, from soups to nut, we started working on that. I would say just 3 years ago till now, the building it's literally done. The only thing that's left is having the doors, the windows, the power plant, as I talked about, and then paint. And then I think it's ready to be, habited. So of course, it also depends on what time and that my wife and kids will be going there on
right.
visit. At least I know we've done almost all the heavy lifting. Once we have the windows, the doors all retrofitted,
Hmm.
it's ready for us to move in. And whenever you come to Ghana, into Accra, I mean Accra, Ebri, we can go up the mountain and then chill and have some
There you
good time
go.
there.
There you go. My land is actually in Ayi Mensa, which is like right below
Yeah,
the mountain.
before you
Right.
go up the mountain. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kwame, can you walk us through the some of the challenges you're facing with doing these projects? Are you is it just the government issues you're facing, or what about the guys doing the job, right? Because sometimes I feel like, you might hire some guys to do the job and they're not doing the job right. Half the money you're sending to them, it goes towards miscellaneous that you'll never find out what it is, right? So how are you managing that project from being here? I know you take a lot of visits back home, I'm guessing, but how you finding people you could trust that could manage the project for you?
So again, if some of your listeners might know Royal Kingdom Estates, so Danny, who is the developer, he's been an awesome, I would say the CEO for that business. He has a wonderful team of project managers that we work closely with. So it's Danny and then Glenn Desmond. Yes, I have full faith and trust in them throughout this 3-year process. All I have to do, send the money through my Chase account to their banking account to have the funds, and then they will work through all the different stages of the project. Not touch wood. I've not had any issues, and I say it sincerely, dealing with them. And of course, we do have constant video check-ins, Zoom check-ins
Right.
to get updates on the various stages of the projects that we've been working with. But you have a great point with the frustration. So for the other 4 projects that I had, it comes down to trust, right? The trust issue was where most of the funds that went into those projects at Dodowa, Kasua, Ayikuma, and all those places, it just the funds just went through the drain. Of course, it's frustrating, but I still believe in the Ghana that our parents, our forefathers laid for us to make it habitable for our children, and then of course for tourists that might be coming to Ghana. Ghana is a beautiful place. I know you've been there several times, and I'm saying it I'm not being biased, but I believe that across the sub-Saharan Africa, Ghana is the most safest, the most peaceful, friendly people that you can interact with, do business, and still have fun. We work hard, but of course we have to play hard.
Of course. So tell me, how do you balance it, right? You have your professor, you have another job at the university you work at, your father, your husband. How are you balancing being able to manage all this project back home?
It's all multitasking, right? And I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's all about making sure that you can prioritize what needs to be done. And as we speak, I'm working from home today. I've turned off everything. But even before coming online with you, I was dealing with students being, who they are, trying to get their way, but failing to follow instructions. But to me, in answering your question, it comes down to being able to prioritize yourself. If you are able to prioritize, you can multitask on anything and everything that you can do. Of course, yes, I do consult in the bank. I'm, full-time professor. Besides that, also, I'm also a director for a master's program where I have students coming across the globe, right? So it's a lot of work, and then at the same time managing projects in Ghana. If I can do it, anybody can do it. It's all about making sure that you can prioritize stuff that you need to push off for a while. You need to do so. Sitting by 6 different computers in my basement here, I have post-its, right? And I can just pull one that I'm working on today. My to-do list. I have items that I need to catch up with you. I need to work on an LLC for my wife. I need to work on taxes. I need to work on other paying invoices in Ghana or wherever that I need to take care of, right? So it's all about making sure that you prioritize. I have an MBA lecture that I need to also provide a synchronous lecture for my students. I know I have an hour to spend with you. I'm going to grab lunch. After that, I get online, do my lectures, and then follow through with all other items that I need to work on. Of course, there will be hiccups, but then items that you are not able to go through, you just, mark it for the next day, right? I just folded one that I did yesterday.
Right.
There were three items that I couldn't work off yesterday. Of course, it will be prioritized today as a high priority that I need to work on. And so my point is, people need to be able to multitask. And that cliche, we can walk and chew gum. It's real. You can do it. You can do it at the same time. You could be able to manage stuff in Ghana and at the same time managing stuff here in the America or wherever that people might be.
Right. No, that's excellent, bro. Let me play devil's advocate for a little bit, right? Because somebody watching this is going to be like, "Of course, you're from Ghana. You speak the language. Of course, you're doing well out there. You know how to communicate with folks, and you know how to." Would you be able to pick up the same thing and take it to, say, Kenya or Zimbabwe or South Africa, and feel like you'll be as confident to do business, or is it that, or is there some truth to the fact that, yeah, we're from Ghana, so doing business in Ghana makes sense and it's easier? Or would you, because I'm trying to figure out somebody who's not from Africa, but it's one of the diaspora in the States or the UK, they're looking at it like, I know nobody in Africa. I don't speak the language. How do I start? Where do I begin? What country do I even go to? Where's the best place to invest? Like all these questions are going through their head. So is it easier for you because you're from Ghana and that's the place you just gravitated to invest? Or can you do the same thing elsewhere, somewhere else?
Absolutely. And so again, maybe I can answer that question by going back to you and I, the experience that we had within KPMG as an auditor, right? And so for anyone to do any investments, right, you have to do some risk assessment. You have to assess wherever that you're going. Of course, I'm a natural born Ghanaian, so naturally I'll gravitate towards Ghana. But in answering your question, I can replicate the same playbook that I've done in Ghana to any parts of Africa, right? But of course, before I can even replicate that same playbook, let's say in Kenya, to your point, Tanzania, or even South Africa, I need to understand the market space in these countries, right? Having done all of that, I believe that same playbook can be replicated in Kenya, South Africa, Tanzania, Botswana, wherever that it be. But of course, what the advantage that we do have recently is the discovery or the introduction of AI. AI is something that we should take it seriously, right? So I think another added advantage that it brings to is how you can be able to translate, right? So of course, that playbook that I'm talking about is in English. I'm an Anglophone trained professional. Yes, when I was growing up in Ghana, I learned French, But since I migrated to America almost 30 years ago, my fluency in French has really gone down. But with I believe you can be able to translate and then still communicate with your customers or clients or investors across sub-Saharan Africa, in this case, in francophone speaking countries. So yes, I think it's doable. So I'm speaking to your audience that may be thinking of going into Africa or any other places. I think start off by doing your risk assessment, understand the landscape, understand the people or where you are going into, the risks that you're taking on. If you can risk accept, knowing that your investment is going to yield the returns that you want, absolutely, Africa is the place. When the research that you can also come up with is Africa is the youngest and then the fast growing continent just across all the globe. Africa is the only place that is still underdeveloped. And so if you are an entrepreneur and then you believe in your vision, you believe in what you want to achieve, I think you can maximize your returns in Africa much more than investing here in the Western world.
Got it. Got it. No, that makes sense. I tend to agree with you as well, but I do feel like we have a little bit of comfort knowing that we could speak the language. It helps a lot.
Absolutely.
I'll also suggest that if you could find somebody you could connect with from that local country that you could build trust with, that you could build relationship with, I think it could take you a lot further than doing it on your own. So to Kwame's point, doing your due diligence, doing some research, using AI to get information as far as how the market is, the region and all that good stuff will be very, very helpful.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. I mean, teaming up with, partners out there, that relationship, it's crucial, right? It's crucial, but, going further out will be the trust issue, right? It's very important that you build that trust because it's your hard dollars or your hard pound sterling that you want to invest or your euros, right? And so you just don't want that to go down the drain. You and I, we've had challenges in Ghana that there are, our dollars going down the drain, right? But of course, we still believe in the future that Ghana or the trajectory that Ghana is going towards on. And so yes, the due diligence, but then make sure that the trust factor
Mhm.
with your partners that you're working with in Africa, you have that also taken care of.
We talk a lot about investing in opportunities. Let me talk about a different kind of investment for a second. Your health is your highest return on investment. That's why I created a brand called Bow Action. We make Vestly Pro adjustable weighted vest, currently on Amazon. The vest adds up to 35 pounds to your body weight, including wrist and ankle weights. If you're serious about investing in your health and not just your portfolio, and you want to support this channel and what we're building, please check out the link in the description below. Every purchase goes directly into keeping these conversations going. Thank you very much for your support. Kwame, what surprised you the most when it comes to investing in Ghana or Africa? What has been the biggest
Sure. So,
surprise for you?
well, the surprise part we will talk about. I think building in real estate, there are different stages that you go through. But on average, I think, it should cost you roughly around 200,000. That's where we are now, right? That we've invested in. But then if we were to flip this real estate, I can be able to make, over 100% off of that or even
Mm.
more, right? So I still think that there is value there, but then the surprise part that I'm still learning through is that in some cases it's very difficult, especially if you're working with I would say people just by the roadside. Then your money they'll just overblow the budget, right? Something that may cost you, let's say $10,000, they might, give you an estimate for about $50,000 to $60,000, right? So again, to what you and I we've been talking about is making sure that the boots on the ground, you can trust them, but you also need to verify the amount that they're charging you for that.
What did you mean by working with people on the street side?
Sure. So you know how here, I'm not too sure about Charlotte, but in New York or New Jersey
Like
area,
Home
you
Depot?
could drive. Yeah, yeah, you could drive by Home Depot, and then you could find these. And again, nothing to
Right.
demean
Helpers. Yeah, people are
demean
willing to do some work. Yep.
profile.
Yep.
Exactly. So there are some Hispanic folks that they are willing and ready to do work, right?
Absolutely.
So you pick them up, you take them to your house, and I do it here in my yard. I bring them in every year when I get my bonus, right? I do other home improvements, right? So I pick them up, bring them to my house, or even before bringing them, I go to Home Depot, I purchase what I need, they come do the work, they charge me, they're done with the work. But then when you try to replicate that in Ghana or other parts of Africa, it's very difficult, right?
Right.
And so that's where I talk about the trust, but you need to verify that if you're giving them the 50,000, is it truly $50,000 that's going to cost you to do the work that you need?
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Just to take it back a little bit. You were talking about the numbers, right? You said the 200,000 so far is what you've invested in one property that you guys are building, your wife
Thus
and
far,
yeah.
yes.
And you're saying that 200,000 you spent on that one house, after it's said and done, you could flip it for almost 400,000?
Well, and it also comes with regards to the location.
Mm,
Location plays a role, right? Ayimensa, Ebri, East Legon, Ajingano, and all those areas, right? As long as you have access to potable water, access to road, you have electricity, all the serviceable stuff that you need, right? Ebri, it's the I cannot deal with the heat, right? Unfortunately,
right.
even though, and I joke with my friends, I was born in the tropics, but I've lived in the cold for almost 30 years, right? So when I go to Ghana and, after 3, 4 days, I do get heat rashes all over my body. But then Abri gives me that kind of, the Western weather temperature, right? It's an ideal place that people would want to, and I'm not trying to sell Abri to your audience, but I think it takes away the noise in the city. I grew up in Accra, right? I know all the nooks and crannies of Accra. I don't know much about Kumasi, but I mean, I'm an Ashanti. Forgive my Ashanti. I know my Ashantis listening in might butcher me, but I'm an Accra boy. I think the mountain area is the best place, and even on the foothills in Ayimensa, where your property is,
Right.
that also drives the price or the value of the property. To even build anything in parts of the world or even here, right? You need to acquire the land, right? So we have my wife and I. We have for this very one in Abri, we have a 2.5 plot, right, which is 100 by
Mm,
is it 100 by 100? 100 by 100, and I think in some areas they have 70 by 100, right? So we do have a 2.5 plots of land. And at the time when we purchased it, I think it was about 4,000 per plot, right? So we purchased it for, was it, so we paid about close to 13 or $14,000, right?
right.
Close, either 14 or 12,000. I've forgotten the exact amount. That was way back 2022, 2023. Currently, a plot of land without anything, the land acquisition, one plot from what I was told by the developer in that Royal Kingdom estate area is going for almost about 10,000 or $12,000, right?
Mm,
Once you have that, so you could see the appreciation, even without you building on, right? Once it's acquired and you start doing the digging or the work to bring it to where it is, to that 200K, of course, when you flip it, that's when you appreciate or you have the 300, 400,000 for that investment. I don't plan on selling that.
right.
Uh, I want, the way my wife has built it, I want it to be our baby when we travel. Of course, I call it my vacation home, but of course, I'm planning on extending the same approach in parts of Accra or even in Kumasi, where maybe I might do flipping for those investments.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. So, Kwame, if somebody's watching this right now and they thinking to themselves, man, I want to do exactly what he's doing, what's the one thing they need to know about what you're doing that nobody told you? Like,
So what I would say is that do your due diligence, right? Get to know the markets, get to know where you pump in your hard earned money, right? It will pain me to redo the same. So you remember I talked about 4 other investments that is still stalled,
Right.
right? So even if I paid 3,000 each for one plot, and always I try to purchase two plots, right? But let's say if it was even one plot, four, right? It's about 12,000. So remember, it's two plot each, right? It's over 24,000 that just gone down the drain without, for now, consider that to be a bad debt. It's a sunk cost, right? I'm not even thinking about, these days, even when I go to Accra or go to Ghana, I don't even visit those sites, right? Because one part of the other part of Africa that we have to also bear in mind is that your safety comes first, right?
Right.
It's not all funds that you should always be chasing. Yes, 24K, it's a substantial amount of money, but my life, it's more valuable than losing that 24K. I can make that 24K instantly, but my life gone, you cannot make it back again,
Mm,
right? So
break that down for me, Kwame. Is it that you invested in areas that are not safe neighborhoods? Is that what it is?
the neighborhoods are safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that they do have land guards that when you want to challenge them, then they might do something that, and I've heard stories that people getting killed, right? Or
Really?
being maimed, right? In certain areas. I mean, the areas that I purchased all those lands, it's safe places, right? It's just that working with the land commission and then the land guards, those are the bad nuts that they make it bad experience, or it's a bad taste in your mouth, so to say.
Now, these land guards, is it prevalent in Ghana, or is it prevalent in Africa as a whole? Like, because now you're really gonna scare people from investing in Ghana.
Well, so I'm not trying to scare people though. It's safe to invest, but you have to do the due diligence, right? So working with, RKE, Royal Kingdom Estates, right? And that's why I said not, knock on wood or touch wood. We've not had any instance that we've had with land guards or police or whatever. But I'm saying, and that's why I'm being very transparent,
Right,
right?
appreciate that.
That in some years gone, right? I remember where I went to high school, Accra Academy. There was one guy called just drew blank with his name. He was in the military or the
Mhm,
police.
mhm.
Um, his name, yes, the name was Kweku Ninja. He was killed going to a site, right, to investigate. He was even in the police, right? It happened back, I was very young. That was in 1996, 1996 or 1995, 94, thereabout, right? And even after that, there are still instances that the land guards are always causing chaos in certain areas. But relatively speaking, it's very safe to build or to purchase land in Ghana. It's just that the people in the land commission, it's wherever that you go, there's corruption.
Of
But you
course.
have to know who you deal with to be able to navigate through all these hurdles.
Okay, so I'm putting myself in a diaspora position. I'm thinking to myself, how do I know which area has land guards versus which ones that don't? Because the property I bought, I don't think there's a land guard around it. Like, is the land guard like people who watches the land to make sure that whoever's coming in, they have to approve it? Because I know even with my parents' house that I purchased from them in Tantra Hill, I had to
Okay.
go through the chief for him to approve that land for me to purchase it, even though I was working with the land commission, right? So is the land guard people like government officials, or are they just people who've decided to just create a whole land guard to protect lands? And how does that work?
So that's a good question, and again, I can do a quick research into that.
If you don't have that
And
information, that's fine, Kwame. I'll look it up,
yeah,
and maybe I'll inform the audience later on down the road. I just don't want to put any
correct.
fear in the eyes that, because I've never heard of the land guards thing, and but you probably know a little bit more than me. You've lived in Ghana a lot longer, and you have a little bit more experience in even doing business in Ghana, right? So I'm taking your word for it. Okay, so those other 4 properties, you purchased them, but what was the issue as far as why you couldn't build on them or even use them, because of the land guards only, or is it the government
Sure.
issues?
So there are multitudes of issues with those, right? And most of the times, right? what I do believe is that the land guards work with some of the chiefs, and there are some corrupt chiefs. And
Mm.
I'm being very
No,
sincere,
I
right?
appreciate that.
Some of these corrupt chiefs will also work with developers, right? And so that developer will also sell, well, the chief will sell the piece of land to the developer, and at the same time sell that same land to someone else. So there's always that conflict.
Gotcha.
That is what has run me into. And so the question that you did ask me about what would I what advice would I give to someone if they were going in at first? Yes, I did my due diligence, but then I did not dive deeper into investigating whether those lands that we purchased had been sold to someone else. So that's the issue that we run into. And most of the times, the land guards also work with the chiefs, the developer, and in some cases with the police.
Okay.
That if you are not from that area, your safety comes first.
Got
I
it.
mean, again, it's full disclosure, but I also want to tell you, in spite of these onesies, twosies that you might encounter, I still believe that Ghana is relatively safer
Absolutely.
to invest and then build properties.
So for you going to find another property, how do you ensure that this property is not surrounded by, land guards or chiefs that are corrupt? I mean, obviously you can't tell if somebody's corrupt or not. You find out through the hard way, right? But is there a way
Exactly.
to figure out if this property or this area that I'm trying to go build in has a land guard? Is there any kind of way to figure that out to protect
Well,
yourselves?
yeah. So in this case, right, it comes down to the developer, right? So for what this investment that we're working on in Ebri, the developer had already done that due diligence,
Okay.
right? And so throughout the stages, in this case, getting the permit, getting the title, the registration, and all that, it was on them to make sure that we have that. For all the other four places, all that I had was the initial indenture. I have not even had to the point where I can say that those lands are fully registered in my name, right? And so I would advise that whoever that wants to get into, you have to do more due diligence on the developer, much less on, because the chief, you might not have a direct linkage to the
Right.
chief. It's rather you dependent on the developer in doing that, you know, business transactions with a chief. But there are some cases where you can purchase the land directly from the chief, but be careful. So in my case, I think it's best you work with a developer. Put that pressure on them so
Right.
that they will deal with the risk
Got it.
because they are boots on the ground, right? You have other things going on. It could be parts of Europe, it could be parts here in North America, or somewhere else, or even in Australia, right? You don't have the leisure, right, in driving down to Ayumensa.
Right.
It's miles and miles away, right? So again, it goes back to that risk factor and then the trust, right? I know working closely with Danny, the CEO for Royal Kingdom Estates, and Glenn, right? They just phone call away or get on Zoom. What is the status? But then also the fact that I'm a Ghanaian, I have other distant relatives that can also go to the site to observe and know what's going on. And so for someone who is not a native, right, you to what you were saying, you need to build that relationship that you can also trust someone else to double verify on your behalf what your project and how things are going there.
Got it. Makes sense. Makes sense. So growing up, we always heard, don't invest in Africa unless you could be there yourself to watch the investment or watch the property. Do you think things are changing now for the better, where if you find people you trust, you can actually build in Africa without having to be there? Um, or is it easier just to build something here in America versus going back to Africa to build?
So I think, you and I, we come from that risk and finance perspective. And what I do teach as a professor, um, for any investments, you want to diversify your portfolio, right? That's number one. Always diversify. I would never ever say do not invest in the Western world if you're fully grounded in this. I mean, I've assimilated for 30 years. As an American as it could be, right? So it's always important to invest here, but do not forget Africa. Africa can give you thrice or quadruple or whatever it is returns higher than what you will get in the Western world. So, yes, I still believe that you can still be in America or in Europe and still actively invest in Africa. I would say I'm a testament to that.
Right.
Most of the time, if I'm going there, and like I said, beginning, I'll be there for a week next week. Within that week, I'm able to get in all that I need to do, right? Making sure I'm at a site. I'm making sure if I need to pay plumbers or whoever that needs to be taken care of, checking in with the guys in China, making sure that they are sending over the materials.
Right.
Once that's taken care of, I'm back home, right? At the same time, we still have Zoom check-ins. I'm able to connect with folks on the ground, making sure that it's going according to the project timeline that we've set. So yes, you can be here and then still take care of business in Ghana or wherever that you want to do. But in some cases, also, if it's more to do with starting up real, let's say, agricultural business in farming or poultry or banking, of course, you might need to spend some substantial amount of time being on the ground, making sure that the business is running the way you want it to be.
No, that's exciting. No, that's great. Kwame, I love this because, you talk about your property and it sounds like long term you have a plan to either build a banking system to bring all
Absolutely.
your experiences from the US to that. If you could just touch on that a little bit, I just want to understand how, that's going to flow through
Sure.
your
Sure. So besides real estate, the other passion that I have is finance or banking. And I started, pursuing this way back during the MPP, the former governments, when the finance minister, Ken Oforiatta, I've been in constant conversations with him back then, and even currently with Dr. Forson. All I need to do is to be able to have the banking license. So for this week that I'll be in Accra, there are some, steps or applications that I have to go through. I'm also having people advise me that, of course, you might also think about acquiring non-performing banks, but that's also something that I might need to work with my investors, people that of the same mindset that they would want to invest in Africa. I think Africa is the place. I might be biased to that, but I still believe that, coming from this finance space and how numbers work, making margins here or in Europe is difficult than making the margin in Africa. But for you to make those margins in Africa, you have to understand the markets there. You
yeah.
have to be on the ground. And if you're able to understand that, Africa has over a billion population and it's all youth. So just imagine that.
Right.
And Africa can catch fire if we all get involved, right? And that's something that I'm very passionate about, and I know it will happen.
Absolutely. Same here, man. Same here. That's why I even started this podcast because I see the growth, I see the potential, and no one is talking about it. So, um,
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure there's a few people talking about it, but not as in depth as I would hope it to be. But that's very good, Kwame. I could sit here and talk to you for hours, bro, because I feel like you have a lot of great insight. You're doing a lot of big things, and I'm so excited to have you on my team as a friend of mine, as a brother of mine, to be able to connect with you while this project is going on, all this fun stuff is going on. We're getting close to the end. I know you have your whole time ready to go to lunch and do all your stuff. So, just a few more questions, right? We're gonna go through
Sure.
something that I call the rapid fire questions. just whatever comes to your head, just tell me what you're thinking. I'm going to ask you these questions quickly. Just, think about what your first answer that comes to your head, and then we could roll with it. Okay. So what is the biggest win so far for you?
My biggest win is making sure my daughter or my kids can have free access going to college without any debt. It's huge.
You've done
It's
that.
huge.
You've done that as a professor at Rutgers, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's
excellent.
huge.
All right, cool. What is your biggest regret or mistake?
My mistake was not understanding the Guinean market well from a real estate perspective. And I think we've talked about that in detail. In hindsight, I should have done more due diligence and then vetting out these developers that I work with. But listen, we live and learn, and then
Mhm.
we move on.
Absolutely. If you could go back to your 25-year-old self, what's one thing you would tell yourself?
Understand risk that you take on, but take on more risk and have fun at the same time.
Interesting. Name one book that changed your thinking.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I know that book very well. That's exactly mine too.
Yeah,
Once I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it changed everything for me.
yeah.
Okay. So if you had 10,000 to invest in Africa today, where would it go?
Real estate and in
Mm.
poultry. Real
Mm.
estate and poultry. I love meat. I love real good meat.
What's one thing that needs to change for Africa to reach its potential?
It's, the mindset, and also addressing regulatory, bottlenecks, right? To me, it's, I get frustrated. And I'm saying it, sincerely. I get frustrated when you have bureaucrats, impeding progress. We have over 1 billion population of youth. And we talked about AI, and I come from that finance space. Fintech, financial technology, is gonna disrupt a lot, right? And so we need to change the mindset and then think outside the box. And that's why, if I were to go back to the 25-year me, take on more risk. Let's break all the barriers. Africa, there's nothing that should stop us from becoming the fastest growing. We need to break the barriers. Of course, if I'm traveling to Ghana, why do I well, let's say if I want to go to Morocco or Egypt, why do I have to fly from Accra to London before going to Morocco or Egypt? It's lunatic, right? It beats my mind why we cannot break those barriers to allow free trade across Africa. If we can do it that way, if we can change the mindset, whatever sector, whatever industry that we plug ourselves in, we can quadruple and make millions or make millionaires across the continent Africa. That's forgive me for being so passionate
No,
about
that's
this
that's
question.
that's
So
that's facts.
it's something that I think it's about time we change the mindset. And it pains me that we have some of our folks that are in the diaspora, they are always also being limited by, oh, I can't do this because I wasn't born here. Who told you? I mean, when I came to America, I used to drive taxi. I drove the yellow cab when I was going for my first degree at Adelphi University, my first American degree. I was driving the yellow cab on the streets of America. I never interned, but here am I, with the one and only Kwame Adu working at KPMG. No, I'm being serious, right? It's the mindset.
Yep,
It's the
absolutely.
mindset that if you can change that, I can drive the taxi, move into the corporate rooms of America, and be who I am, and I'm still pushing boundaries.
Absolutely. Amazing, amazing story, bro. Amazing journey. That's a good point. I think the mindset definitely have to change. With that being said, do you think Africa can ever unite?
I'm trying to limit the pessimism in me, but I'm very optimistic. I think we can. I think we can achieve the dream that our namesake, Dr. Nkrumah, Kwame Nkrumah, and then other forefathers had. We
Right.
have to unite. We have to unite, break down the barriers to trade, and make it a beautiful continent that we can all enjoy. It's a beautiful weather. You name it. Beautiful women. You name it. What else? Let me be careful with my words, but
Please.
you know.
No, but you're making a lot of sense, though. I see what you're saying. I definitely see what you're
Yeah.
saying. So one last piece, right before we wrap up. This is my favorite part. It's called the bridge. Someone is watching this maybe 6 months from now. They're inspired. They want to start doing something. What's the one thing you're leaving the bridge for them? A resource, a contact, an opportunity, something they can actually use, not just fluff, but some resource they can actually use.
Excellent question, and I wanted clarity with where you were heading towards. So yes, number one, from a real estate perspective, Danny, he's the CEO for Royal Kingdom Estate, RKE. He's all over the social media. He's a social media frenzy guy. Either YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or wherever you can find Danny Royal Kingdom Estate. I work also closely with his, say his right hand man. In this case, Desmond Entry. They are a great resource that if you are interested in invested in real estate in Ghana, I've been through it. I'm still finishing up a project with him, and I will highly recommend that you work with him on that. But from a finance and banking perspective, of course, I'm happy to help or coordinate or collaborate with whoever that wants to work with me. I have my own, business that I've already set up here in America. When I'm in Accra next week, I'm also hoping to register that business. It's called Dank Equity LLC. Is the initials of myself, my wife, and my two kids. So Danielle, Alyssa, Nana Konadu, and my first initial Kwame. So it's Dank Equity LLC.
Beautiful.
Of course, my goal is to take a part or play a part in making the Africa that our forefathers dreamt about. I believe in trade. I believe in money. It's all about the Benjis, right? So I think and I believe strongly that Africa will unite in answering your question, but we need to break down the barriers and then the mindset to make Africa what it's supposed to be.
Kwame, this was incredible. Thank you so much for being an open book and sharing your insight on what you're working on now and your future endeavors. For everybody watching, all of Kwame's information will be linked in the description below. And remember, the bridge is there for you to use it, so please use it. Kwame, again, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you,
Thank
my
you, my
brother.
brother.
Thank you so much.